Fans, it's Aztec 101 in the ring. So I wanted to bring up what happened with Deontay Wilder. Him getting pulled over because he had tinted windows, and then the police find marijuana in his car. The South is very harsh on marijuana. And this goes back for a long time. I mean, for a while, marijuana wasn't even a term that was used in the United States, right? It's called cannabis. Or they might use, like the Indian plant or some shit. And it wasn't smoked. It would be in potions, elixirs, medicinal packaging, right? Take a tablespoon of something that had that in it, hemp in it, right? And they would use hemp for paper, clothes, rope, different things, right? So it was used, it was common in the United States. What changed that was after the Mexican Revolution, sometime around 1910 and post that, a lot of immigrants migrated to the United States. The Mexican-American War was different parties going against each other. And some people really just wanted to step away from that war and look for an opportunity to work and put their kids through school. So around 1910, you start getting an influx of Mexican Americans going into the South. They would work in plantations, they would work in labor jobs, and everything was kind of a benefit to the local economy, because these companies were able to pay workers at low wages. Now, they took advantage of the people. They took advantage of the people. They were always looked at as cheap labor. They were never going to get paid their just due for the work that they actually did. They were cheap labor for a reason. So that money was never going to go to them. It was always going to stay in the pockets of the owners, the plantation owners, the business owners, and that's a shame. Now, what ended up happening was Harry Anslinger was a prohibitionist, right? And he really pushed against the prohibition on, or he didn't push against, but he pushed on the prohibition on alcohol, and helped with the prohibition on marijuana. That was one of his biggest projects. One of the main targets of that project was obviously Mexicans. Not saying that Mexicans were the first to smoke marijuana, but before the immigration of Mexicans going into American communities in the South, they didn't smoke marijuana there. They drank it. Like I said, it was medicinal. Mexicans, on the other hand, they already had the cultural impact of smoking marijuana recreationally, right? And like I said, that could have come from the East. That could have came from, India, from Africa, from I don't know how they learned that, but that was already in their routine. Some Mexicans would smoke weed recreationally, like they would drink beer. That was different. That was different to the United States. They really didn't have that in front of them. So that was used against them. That's where, before Reefer Madness, before they started targeting jazz players, jazz musicians, African Americans in general, they went on this campaign, and it's something that you would see throughout the South, throughout newspapers and different types of political cartoons, where they would come up with the Mexican menace and talk about how this was something that would cause Mexican immigrants that smoked it to thirst for white blood. So pretty much they were saying that, if you have Mexicans that smoke weed in your neighborhood, they're a threat to you. Now, that was used in the South to start deporting Mexicans. And it wasn't always just. There wasn't this kind of, checks and balances where they really made sure if this was someone that should be deported. It could have been on feeling. It could have been a witch hunt, you know. I suspect this person is smoking weed, therefore he's out of here, right? And a lot of it could have been this guy smoking weed. But regardless, they split up a lot of families, and that caused a lot of problems. Now, this is something that is funny because even in the 1930s when this was going on, they in their head already had negative feelings towards Mexicans, and there's a deep history here that goes further back on these stereotypes, right? But they used it in their methods on trying to cleanse a certain neighborhood or a certain town or a certain state from overpopulation of certain ethnic people, right? And they can do that with African Americans too, which is something that you see today. Now, in the South, I have no fucking clue why, being in Alabama, you have someone like Deontay Wilder still living there. To be honest, look, do not give your taxes away to a state that is completely taking advantage of you. Especially when they have a history of taking advantage of you. Pick your state. Try to see if you can find a better one. They're not all perfect. They're not all ideal, but you can. The whole process is making them better, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit that they had him pay any fine for marijuana. I don't care how much he had. A pound, an ounce. I don't care if they were ready to go individually. What's the difference between this and caffeine? I think it's just a method to try to take money away from inner cities, from people that smoke it, and try to take advantage of incarcerating people for stupid crimes. And this is a crime technically because it's against the law, but it's a stupid law. And the South tends to, just exceed in I guess in just being really harsh on marijuana. Like they're really tough on it, tougher than areas where we're along the border of a huge black market drug trade, and we're still kind of lenient on marijuana, while you have states where they don't get fucking drugs. They're fucking, when you go over there get weed, it's fucking garbage compared to our weed, and then you go, if you went to Alabama and smoked their best shit, it's common shit over here, right? So they're barely getting introduced to the good shit, and even then, it's hard because they'll get longer sentences. It's just a higher risk, and then it's more expensive, and then all that ends up happening is when you have a drug dealer that has large amounts of weed, when he gets pulled up with the cash in his pocket, guess who gets to keep it? The police department. And it's just a money laundering kind of process where they use the inner city kids to hustle enough money for them to fund their own department. It's all bullshit. I mean, I don't want to go into that really, but this is why people need to legalize marijuana or leave the state. Especially if you're a millionaire, you should leave the state. You're the first one that should leave the state, honestly. If you're a millionaire, do not waste your taxes in Alabama, your property taxes, all that shit. Do not waste it in Alabama. They are not looking out for you. That's all I'm saying. But, yeah, just a little bit of facts, a little bit of why it's harsh in southern states where, people need to know why marijuana is the way it is. Why you even call it marijuana. Marijuana. That's what it is. That's how you pronounce it. It's a lot like, that's why it sounds a lot like a margarita. You gotta know that's not American, right? Marijuana. So, just like a lot of the headlines that are coming out talking about what's going on, this is just a little back end information, facts, things like that, historical references, but whatever. You guys can look it up. It's Aztec 101 in the ring. I'm out.